We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Cranked and ranked. Yes.
Fuck yeah.
Thank you for your patience, but we have returned. And I don't remember how to do this. Hi, old head. With me as always, Eddie Sparxx.
Since you never give a damn in the first place, maybe it's time you let the tables turn, because in the interest of all involved, I got the problem solved, and the verdict is guilty, man, in the gut. Sorry, I got carried away there with the old spit it out. We're doing Slipknot.
You didn't make it to the most brilliant part where he says the word stop, drop, and roll in his rap. Yeah.
Time to bury your ass to the chrome, straight to the dome. That's the most new metal line.
That doesn't sound like white people rapping at all, does it? Chrome, straight to the dome. Who the fuck says that? Anyway, hi, everyone. Yes, Cranked and Ranked, if you're new here, is a podcast / YouTube show where we rank discographies of bands and other things. We've been doing this for a while. Where have you been if you're new? And also welcome. But today, as Eddie displayed, eventually words will work.
We've been off for 2 weeks and we've already shit the bed.
I mean, I do other things, so it's not like I don't talk for 2 weeks. But for some reason, I get nervous or something. I don't know what it is. But Slipknot is the band we're going to be ranking today, ranking the full discography in one episode of Slipknot. And as Eddie was pointing out to me earlier, this is the first time we've done a band that is much more of his era than of mine.
And yeah. It's one of those it's one of those things where it's like you mentioned, System of a Down, Limp Bizkit, like those bands are liked. Yeah, those bands are enjoyed by my generation, but Slipknot
by your generation.
Yeah. Yeah, because by the time I got to high school, or as in this country we call it secondary school, Slipknot were really one of the few bands of that era still hanging around that had maintained relevance. Like
it's a good point, because they started around the same time as Limp Bizkit and System of a Down. But yeah, you're right. Both those bands kind of blew up and then fizzled out, whereas Slipknot kept going even stronger than they were in the early 2000s.
They're kind of like the Kiss of my generation, where it's like they've got the massive stage show, they've got stuff they wear on their face, but instead of singing about women and cool cars and shit, instead it's inner pain and blast beats. So with that,
one of those sounds like fun. So we'll get into this. So just for the benefit of anybody joining this that doesn't already like us, you just came here because you love Slipknot. I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. I came into this really not being a Slipknot fan. I'm now coming out of it being even less of a Slipknot fan.
Wow.
So yeah, I love that we did this, because I always meant to do it. Because honestly, I want to join in. I think it's fun sharing in the joy of music that a lot of people love and stuff. And so I would see, tons of people love Slipknot. And so I'm like, well, one day I'm going to have to go through and just really dig in and listen to everything, because I feel like, well, maybe I'm missing something. And so I always meant to do it, because I don't want to be that guy that's like, they're a big metal band, whatever, sellouts, fuck them. That's not me. I don't care. Clearly I don't care.
Yeah. Both our favorite band is Metallica.
Yeah.
So, if anyone's going to try and call us elitists,
No, 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 no.
Wrong.
And so I went into it giving him a fair shot. I'll get further into it, but I literally went in and started with their first album, which they don't consider their first album anymore. But I started there and went all the way through to the most recent album. And my ranking this is probably the most kind of almost arbitrary ranking that I've done, because the things that separate them are so small that I kind of just went, this feels right, I guess. But that being said, I always talk on my channel a lot about how I hate that there's so much negativity on the internet, first off, but in the world of music and people talking about music, it seems like everything is supposed to be making fun of something or having a hot take or something like that. And I hate that. I don't, it's annoying because it's completely overdone. And most of the time it's people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, just trying to be, as the young people say, edge lords.
Yeah.
And so I've decided that I'm still going to try to come at this from a positive side of things. And so this will be an interesting episode for me, because I'm gonna do some acrobatics, if you will.
He's gonna dance like this the entire time.
In the podcast side of things, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. You're lucky that you didn't have to see whatever that thing I was just doing was. But yeah, but as we usually do, we talk about where this band came into our lives, and honestly, and I have a thing to say for this band, because their first album came out in '99, I believe, and
they're like major label debut.
Yeah, the first, when most people first heard of them, the first Slipknot album, and at the time, I was a guy that had, like, metal had gotten to a point where there wasn't a whole lot I was into. In fact, music in general in the late 90s, I was trying so hard to find stuff to feel passionate about. And it was even harder to find heavy music that I thought was actually any good. And so when the first Slipknot album came out, I don't even remember why I bought it, because I wasn't into Wait and Bleed. I didn't think it was very good. But for some reason, I ended up buying the album, and all I remember was the first two tracks in particular. Well, not the intro, but Sick and Eyeless.
Yeah.
Still today, fucking amazing songs. And I just remember thinking, holy shit, something cool in the world of metal is happening again. So I was really excited with that album. I'll get into my thoughts about the complete album, but I was very like going to my old friends that used to be into metal and being like, hey, listen to this. And they didn't fucking care. But that's been the rest of my life. My life has been, I ended up getting back on the metal train, a few years later because of Mastodon and bands like that. But even then, all of my friends from back in the day, they couldn't be bothered with it. Doesn't matter. But at the time, I was like, it was this shining beacon of hope of like, oh my God, there's like some actual quality heavy music being made. And so that was my intro to them. And so yours was?
Well, my kind of introduction to Slipknot kind of came before I was even into metal, because Slipknot I grew up in an interesting time to get into heavy music, and that was, the very beginning of the 2010s with, the residual late 2000s thing going on.
Yeah.
And with that, Slipknot were already a very established act. I mean, they were already into the touring cycle of their fourth album. At this point, megastar heavy metal band. With that, as a result of kind of being adopted by the Hot Topic kind of crowd.
Yeah.
Here is what everyone who didn't like or understand heavy music thought about metalheads across the board, like whether or not you were an emo, a goth, a metalhead, or a punk, or just liked rock.
Yeah.
All of that fell under, you're an emo and you like Slipknot, you like screaming and that, and you like Slipknot and you're an emo, and that was literally it. That was all your fucking identity was reduced to. You didn't even have to like Slipknot to be you're an emo.
Well, to be fair, the Hot Topic thing is a good point to bring up, because at that point, like, you know, I sorry to say it for people that are into, like, you know, metalcore and stuff like that, but there was crossing of boundaries with emo, even with Slipknot. Like, the people that are into My Chemical Romance are also the same people that are like, I push my fingers into my eye. Like, because that's a fucking emo song if I ever heard it in my life. So it makes sense, but at the same time, it's giving metalheads kind of a raw deal and being like, well, you're an emo, and it's like, well, I guess if that emotion is hate and anger.
that was the most frustrating thing for me, was like, I wasn't really even into like modern metal. I was into the old school stuff.
Yeah.
Even back then. Granted, you know, I was more into Slipknot and that sort of modern metal thing back then than I kind of ended up being later on.
Yeah.
But like, I just remember it's like I stuck out like a sore thumb in with the emos, because I was still very denim and leather classic heavy metal.
Yeah.
But because I was like adjacent with them liking guitars, I was lumped in as an emo by proxy, and therefore, you know, everybody was like, you like My Chemical Romance, don't you? And I was like, I mean,
they've got some tunes.
They've got some tunes, but like, to reduce my identity to a band that I'm not even really into is like, I don't know, just kind of bummed me out a little at the time.
You realize that if today you were in high school or secondary, I guess, is that what you guys call it there?
Yeah.
If you were in that now, you would be like the hottie of the school, because post Eddie Munson.
I feel fucking robbed, frankly. Yes. Can you imagine? Like me then, now?
Yeah.
I'd be drowning in chicks, but no. Eddie Munson took fucking 11 years too late. So
well, I also suffered a little bit from that too, because when I got into high school, it was, you know, the grunge thing in the 90s moving into the pop punk thing with Green Day and stuff. And I was still like a metal kid, but at that point, metal had been reduced to Beavis and Butthead. So, which is fine. And like, I like Beavis and Butthead, but I understand some people hate that kind of shit that kind of pokes fun, because then it turns on them where I'm just a guy that likes metal, and everyone wants to go whenever that's what they would do. I would, you know, the popular kids would pass me by in the high school halls. And they would do that. So it was the same kind of thing. I mean, there was it's because I remember that everybody at my school thought it was like, you know, I'm getting off on a tangent already. I'm sorry.
Do it.
But it was almost like I was kind of uncool for having long hair. But then something happened here. I don't know if it was all over America or just, you know, in Texas. But once the movie Dazed and Confused came out, and people started to equate football players with rock and roll, and once the football player, American football for you English folk, started growing out their hair, then they were hot with their long hair. Me, no, I'm weirdo with long hair because I don't play football. So it was tough. We both had a tough time.
We walk as long-haired metalheads do. We walk a tightrope of you know, social norms and social not norms. And so in the end, I just became a Mike Patton fan and gave up. And I'm just the weird guy.
Yeah.
So,
all right, well,
hell yeah.
Let's do this without further ado, because I know some people are probably just like, get to the fucking ranking. Quit talking about yourselves. And fuck you. So, bye. Anyway.
Fuckers.
Yeah. So let's start with, we're doing 8 albums total, because we're doing the 7 proper albums and the first album that they've said is more of a demo, but as far as I know, it was released as an album. So it's just not as a wide release, but so we're doing 8 albums, and we're starting with what we think is the least good to the bestest. album. And so, as usual, I throw it over to Eddie Sparxx to start us off. What is your number 8 Slipknot album?
Okay, so my number 8 Slipknot album is Point Five, The Grey Chapter.
Okay.
So this is the first album without Joey Jordison and, of course, Paul Gray, so the drummer and bassist.
Yeah. Hence why it's called The Grey Chapter.
Yes, yeah. And I remember when Paul Gray died, and it was big news, and it, all of the, quote unquote metal kids that were, big metal fans, Slipknot was their favorite band, hands down. And I was interestingly, a generation where the guitar hero kind of took a backseat to the drummer because everyone wanted to be Joey Jordison. Even people who weren't necessarily into metal heard Slipknot and thought, oh, the drum parts sound fucking cool.
Yeah, well, because he's an amazing drummer. So that, I mean, it's hard to deny that.
And to me, Joey was always my favorite part of Slipknot. But I'm gonna dive in. So this is actually with Jay Weinberg on drums, and forgive me, I've forgotten the newer other members since then. But XIX, I know it's a Roman numeral, but I forget. It's kind of this like atmospheric Nine Inch Nails influence.
Who learns? I didn't even learn Roman numerals in school. Like who? I don't. Is it one of those things we're supposed to just pick up along the way? Because I never did.
Well, we have a clock in our house that's Roman numerals, so I kind of picked it up off of that. But
I know 1 through 5 only because of Rocky 1 through 5 using Roman numerals in the title. That's the only reason I know.
Funnily enough, I knew 1 through 6 because of Star Wars. So
oh, there you go. That's another one.
Yeah. But then you get, Sarcastrophe, which is, Slipknot doing Slipknot. AOV is this, thrash influenced skanker. The Devil in I follows that classic quiet verse, big chorus. It's a tried and tested formula, and, hence it was a single.
Yeah.
Kill Pop, I'll admit, it sounds different, but it's not stylistically the type of stuff that I come to Slipknot for. Skeptic is, a tribute to their deceased bassist, where the world will never know another crazy motherfucker like you. Which is kind of a nice way to honor his, legacy. Lech is a heavy blaster. Goodbye is another atmospheric one. Nomadic's got some groovy riffage going on. The One That Kills the Least has a cool solo in it. Okay, Custer. Cut me up and fuck me up. Your thoughts, Stephen?
I mean, he's a poet. Absolutely.
So Be Prepared for Hell works as an interlude between its neighboring tracks. The Negative One is a pretty unrelenting track. Slipknot going hard and fast here. And finally, If Rain Is What You Want is this vibey closer. Also, before I, elaborate further, a running theme throughout this ranking is that none of these are short albums. They largely clock in at around an hour almost every time.
I'm gonna go ahead and say, I guess I don't know any other way to put it. All of them are too long.
Yeah,
every single album is too long. So,
each album comes with, I'd say for the most part, each album comes with about 10 to 15 minutes that could maybe have not been there.
And now if you go to like streaming services, some of them even have bonus tracks after the long ass fucking album, which I went and looked at the original track listing and I just went boop and cut it off right there. And I went, nope, that's it.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, this is the first album without identifying factors as to why I liked Slipknot in the first place. This isn't a slight against Jay Weinberg, who's a fantastic drummer, or the band in general. It just for this one, it's very atmosphere focused, but it's done in a way that I don't know. My ears just don't find it as interesting as the 4 albums that came before it, nor the 5 albums technically, and the two that precede it, but or
Mhm.
follow it. Sorry. With that, I'm gonna have to say, I mean, it's not an unpopular opinion. I did a lot of looking around, and the Grey chapter tends to hang out in the bottom few spaces. So
Yeah, wasn't Paul Gray like a big part of the songwriting process? Like losing him, wasn't that? I mean, I have a feeling that's probably why the album isn't quite as good, because it's if he was a big part of it, and then all of a sudden he's missing, you got to scramble to figure out, well, how do we fill in this missing piece? You know?
yeah, I'll kind of I'll admit that I'm not really crazy knowledgeable about their process.
Yeah,
I know a lot of the lore
yeah.
surrounding Slipknot, but actual songwriting is something I need to look into more.
Well,
But you know that
somebody watching or listening, chime in and comment. And what was he in fact like that integral of a member when it came to songwriting? Obviously, he was integral because he was the bass player of the classic lineup. But yeah,
yeah. So with that, that's my number 8. That's my
cool,
bottom pick. So with that,
sweet.
over to you.
So in the what do you call it? The
In the beginning, have you ever seen that video of the, like, I think it's the South African president or someone trying to say in the beginning and he just can't do it, but he doesn't stop trying? Have you ever seen that?
No,
It's
I
so
haven't.
funny. In the beginning, in the beginning, in the be, in the beginning, in the. It's just so funny. It lasts like a full
And
30
that, my
seconds.
friends, is the film The King's Speech right there. So I was going to say, in the spirit of coming at this from what I feel is a positive way to look at their discography from a person who is confirmed not a fan now.
Hmm.
I had to put at number 8, Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat from 1996, the unofficial first album, depending on who you're talking to.
Mm.
So I remember you shared with me a bit of one track, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds interesting. I wonder what this album is gonna be like." And there's a part of me that I kind of understand why they have sort of just given this the demo label later on, because it overall, comparatively speaking, doesn't feel like a fully formed Slipknot album.
Mm.
And it's a different vocalist, obviously. Anders Kolsefny on vocals, who's he's
Hmm.
whatever. And obviously, there's a few songs where you hear riffs where you go, oh, this is a riff from a later song. So they
Yeah.
obviously reuse some of these. But the song that you shared with me, once you get to that one, "Do Nothing" / "Bitch Slap," it got to the point where I felt like they were emulating other bands so much that I was like,
Mm.
oh, well, this is clearly just Mr. Bungle, not as good as Mr. Bungle. And that made it a worse song
Hmm.
because I'm just like, it's too obvious here. And at that point, and for the rest of the album, like, it's so disjointed and unfocused, and it's clear that it wants to be much better than it is, that it almost sounds awkward at times. And not to say that there's not cool ideas peeking out of this. Like, you can kind of see that, all right, I can see that how something cool could have come out of this. But it just seems that kind of half-baked attempts at doing shit that was already done better by somebody else,
Hmm.
or what was probably more likely, they weren't quite up to the level to actually pull those things off yet. Because there are some things that they're perfectly fine at. Obviously, as technically as musicians, I think that they were good. But if you listen to it, like, things are so off. Sometimes the guitars are off from the drums, and that wasn't supposed to happen.
Hmm.
So it's really uncomfortable and kind of hard to get through for me, because the thing that, knowing what I know about Slipknot and the stuff that I had heard at that point from Slipknot, which was essentially 2 albums and some random songs, I my thought was like, oh, it's going to be tight rhythm section, tight everything, spot on with the rhythm. And this one is very much like, it's kind of all over the place, and
Hmm.
that just made it really hard for me to enjoy. And clearly, they got better at doing what they were doing. So even though at this point maybe they were a little more adventurous than they later would become, so I appreciate that aspect of it. But for overall presentation, I'm just like, this feels like they're kind of trying to figure out who Slipknot is, and then eventually they would get there and figure out who Slipknot were. And so this for a huge fan, this is probably tons of fun to listen to, but it was kind of a rough listen for me. So that's why it's my number 8.
Fair. I think an important thing to note with that one as well is I don't think they had as many members at this point either,
Yeah,
because Slipknot notoriously, they're a 9-piece band.
yeah,
Most bands, 4, 5, possibly even 3, rare cases 2 members are enough. But Slipknot, they have such a stage show and an outrageous kind of thing that was
yeah.
like genuinely dangerous in the beginning. Like, you hear stories about the Slipknot and Iowa tours, and you're like, fucking hell, I'm surprised more people didn't die at these shows, man.
Well, yeah.
'Cause
Well,
they were
not
insane.
only that, Howard from Acid Rain, who I do a show with as well, because
Yeah.
we actually just did, once this episode comes out, the new episode of Old Bollocks comes out where we review the newest Slipknot album. But he talks about seeing them on their first time to the UK, and about how the band members were trying to injure each other like during the
Yeah.
show. And I'm just like, well, that's fucking crazy. But I mean, obviously you can't do that forever. Eventually you grow up, you get older, and you're just like, well, you either saw that shit back in the day or you didn't. But
Yeah.
now we're every band's got to grow. But the thing that's fascinating to me is isn't there a guy in the band and his sole purpose is banging on a trash can or a
It's
drum of some kind?
Yeah, well, there's what is it? You got Corey on vocals.
Yeah.
And this is me going off of the original lineup.
Okay.
So you got Corey on vocals, Joey Jordison on drums,
Mhm.
Jim Root and Mick Thompson on guitars,
Yeah.
Paul Gray on bass. Obviously, like I said, old lineup. And then you had kind of the extras, like the seasoning on the meat, which you got you got Sid Wilson doing like the turntables and DJ and stuff.
Is he
You've
still
got
in the band? Is
Yeah, that
because
the rest of his,
I feel like I hear a lot less turntable shit. Maybe he just does more soundscaping kind of stuff now.
yeah. Well, there's Sid Wilson,
Mhm.
kind of the gas masky looking dude, and then you've got Craig Jones, who's the guy with all the nails coming out of his head. That's He does like keyboards and sampling and shit.
Okay.
Uh, and then you got the 2 percussionists. Now these are kind of what really set them apart.
Yeah.
Is they both have these like giant scissor lift drum kits in themselves, doing this like
Mhm.
whacking stuff, and they've got like beer kegs that they hit with baseball bats and stuff to like accentuate parts of the songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
The most iconic one I can think of is that bit in Duality where it goes da 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 da. Yeah, like
Mhm.
that bit.
I almost feel like I've had the disservice or the I don't know what the word is. Apparently words are not a thing today. But I've never seen them live, and I feel
Hmm.
like that's probably where I would enjoy myself with Slipknot, because
Yeah.
I don't mean watching live footage on YouTube, because I have and I've been underwhelmed. So, but I think if I'm there and it's loud and there's the energy of the crowd and everybody doing their thing on stage, I have a feeling I would really enjoy it. Um,
Yeah.
but when it comes to the album aspect of it, it's like, well, I mean, anybody could bang on a keg. You don't really need to have a guy full time for that, do you?
Well, I remember I forgot to mention the 2 percussionists. Again, I'm going off the original lineup. I'm sorry, I'm kind of snubbing the current one, but yeah, I remember when I was kind of growing up, it was Chris Fenn, who was the guy with the long ass dick nose, like that would flap about that he would occasionally jerk off on stage for a joke.
Yeah.
But it was him and Clown. Now Clown is kind of like almost as much of a mouthpiece of Slipknot as Corey is, because
Yeah.
he's very much in charge of like the art direction and the design of things and the stage show. And
Interesting.
so
So wait, so those two, so is the other percussionist not in the group anymore?
yeah, Chris Fenn isn't there anymore, but
Okay.
they do have another guy in his place as far as I know. But
Okay.
yeah, that being said, 9-piece band, it's certainly unique.
Yeah.
And
But on mate, feed, kill, repeat, it's I'm assuming just five.
I'm pretty sure it's like 6, possibly 7,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, it's not as much as they'd get later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've wrapped up your number 8.
But yeah, bottom picks out of the way.
Okay, so my next pick, and this one could land me in some hot water with Slipknot fans,
Uh-oh.
because my number 7 is "We Are Not Your Kind"
Okay. I
from
mean,
2019.
yeah.
I mean, I know it's not going to piss you off. So yeah, for me, this one, I've seen this one hyped up a lot, where it's like this is a real return to form. Like this, some parts of it are like Iowa levels of heavy. When like to me, it's like, well, actually, it just sounds like Slipknot doing Slipknot, but heavier than the last one, because the last album was a bit more atmospheric. But it did have better songs, I think. So with
Yeah.
that,
It's that sort of thing though, where the people who are really big Slipknot fans, Slipknot doing Slipknot only slightly heavier, that sounds great. If somebody said to me, "Hey, the new Metallica album is going to come out and it's going to sound like Metallica only heavier," and I would be like,
hell
"Yeah,
yeah,
give it to me now." I kept having to like see things through the big fans' eyes, because why, for the kind of shit that they do, you don't really want them to veer off for that long,
yeah.
so yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so like you get a little intro called "Insert Coin," and then you get the song "Unsainted."
Uh-huh.
And I really like the heavy parts of this song, but for me, I've always felt kind of strange about the chorus in this song, because it's like it's a little bit. I mean, it's anthemic, but it's strange to hear a choir in a Slipknot song. And I know that's going to sound like me wanting different sounding Slipknot, and they do something different, but it's like,
so I that particular song I think is really good. And
yeah,
there are a handful of songs of theirs where I go, well, I can't argue with this. This is really cool. And to be fair, most of those songs are songs that are slower. Like there are like, now I don't mean the ones where it gets like soft or whatever, because I have my thoughts about those. But I think Slipknot, when they go into a mid-tempo kind of groove for a song, sometimes
yeah,
they do their best shit. And then also when they add elements like that to a song, where I go, well, this elevated the song in my opinion, and
yeah.
that's a good chance to take there.
For me, I think "Unsainted" grew on me a little bit, because like at first I remember listening to it, and I don't know, it to me it felt a little disjointed, where it was like so fucking heavy, da 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 da. Never take a chance to save my soul, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, but then you get "Birth of the Cruel." The breakdown in this is fucking heavy, man. Like "Death Because of Death," you get a little interlude type thing.
Yeah.
"Nero Forte" is a cool song. "Critical Darlings" got some heavy groovage going on. "A Liar's Funeral," it's kind of a ballad sort of track. Here's my kind of take on Slipknot post 2004 though.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the danger and excitement of those late 90s, early 2000s years is what I really liked about Slipknot.
Yeah.
They got to, and I feel like it's doing it a disservice by saying watering it down, because it's not watering it down, but Corey stopped swearing so much and they got more melodic, which I think is cool, cool to go in a direction that's, you know, less uh, edgy. But the thing is,
Well,
ever since 2004, I feel like they've done varying levels of that sound.
yeah, but to be fair, the usually the swearing, the profanity in Slipknot songs is completely unnecessary, and it's just things like
Yeah.
him rhyming motherfucker with cocksucker, and I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's like even back in 1999, I rolled my eyes so hard at that. I was
Yeah.
just like, all right, but yeah, no, I absolutely see what you're saying, because I guess, when a band is at a point where you're not sure what to expect from them, that's a lot more
Yeah.
exciting than when you've gotten to the point where I kind of know, going into this, I have at least an 80% idea of what this is going to be like. So
Yeah. It's like for me, you know, not to give anything away, but I'll say this. When I heard Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, I thought, holy shit, this is weird. When
yeah,
I heard Slipknot, self-titled, I thought, holy shit, this is amazing. And then when I heard Iowa, I went, holy shit, this is heavy. And
Mhm.
then, you know, I get to volume 3 and I'm like, this is the Slipknot everyone knows here on in,
That makes
where
sense. Yeah,
it's varying levels of, they might do some more atmospheric songs on an album, they might do some heavier songs on an album, and
yeah,
it's just kind of this thing now where, you know how like we talked about there being like a color palette on the Nine
yes,
Inch Nails episode we did.
yeah, mhm.
You know how like we said that the Nine Inch Nails was like a big thing of like white to black, and it gradually turned into a gray.
Yeah,
Whereas Slipknot, I think, is like a red and a black, and it's just turned into a very dark red, and it's
yeah.
just kind of stayed there, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, I think a
the
lot of it, especially when it comes to the Corey Taylor side of things, once there was music videos and songs for, is it Stone Sour? Is that the name of his band?
Yeah, that's the other one.
Once that was a thing, the danger was gone. Like
Hmm.
that, I just remember being like, "Is this fucking Creed? Like, what is this?"
Yeah.
Because I'm
I'm
sorry, it's
looking at
just
you through the glass.
it is woo man. It's I could see from people that wanted heavy music and looked up to him as this front man of the heavy band, they probably saw that and just said, what the fuck is this? But to be fair, for his benefit, it probably opened up a whole new group of fans that then came into Slipknot, and now they can also hear him singing in Slipknot as well. So I don't fault him for branching out,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
but when it comes to a level of enjoyment, it's yeah.
um. Oh, but where was I? We got Red
Yeah.
Flags, got some cool riffs in it. What's Next is a creepy little interlude. Spiders. Tell me you like Nine Inch Nails without telling me you like Nine Inch Nails. Like that is what that song says to me. I
Mhm.
liked it though. Orphan is a cool song. Again, nothing new, but done well. My
Mhm.
Pain. Okay, something I can wholeheartedly say sounds actually very original. I actually really like this song. Uh, Not Long for This World is vibey then heavy.
Mhm.
Solway Firth has some Gojira esque stuff towards the end, which I really liked. The big thing that puzzles me about We Are Not Your Kind, however, is the fact that the album's titular track, All Out Life, is considered a bonus track and not part of the actual running order of the album. That's where the line "We Are Not Your Kind" came from, but it
Yeah.
was released in the lead up to this album. And like, I hate to say it, but if that song was on the album, it'd be the best song on the album, you know?
Oh,
Um,
interesting. I didn't know that because I listened to the actual album
yeah,
running. But they're not the first band to do that. There have been bands that have like named an album after something from a song that isn't even on the album. So I mean, it's
yeah.
it just happens in the editing process. You figure out, well, this works better on its own, or whatever.
Mm. I think they released it as like kind of more of a, hey, we're still making shit, and we
Yeah.
we we can do a damn good job of it. And it's like, I don't know. I think I set such a bar with that song that I kind of went into this album thinking, oh, if it's a whole thing of that, then it's just gonna shoot up my list. But you know,
Yeah.
as such, you know, it didn't. But lo and behold, here
Okay.
we are. So with that, back over to you for your number seven.
Okay, I'll be real quick here because my number 7 is point five, The Gray Chapter, which you already talked
Mm-hmm.
about from 2014. So
Cool.
the first thing we got to talk about is that you brought up the words hot topic earlier, and the album cover
Yeah,
literally looks like it was designed by Hot Topic. Like
yeah, I agree.
it
Yeah.
is awful. It is like it is, yeah. And but you know, whatever. I'm sure it means and represents something. Because I'm not a big fan, and obviously this is the first album they did after, you know, the drummer being kicked out and then the
Yeah.
bass player dying. So I'm sure I'm sure there's some sort of important meaning behind the image on the cover. If there's not, then whatever. But to me, like when I was listening to their albums in a row, this is the first one where I went, okay, this is a big step back for this band. Because
Yeah.
I could hear a progression of whatever it was that they were trying to do. Were they trying to get heavier? Were they trying to experiment? Were they trying to expand their sound somehow? This is the first one where I went, oh, they're kind of leaning back and relaxing a little bit, and it sounds a little bit uninspired at times. And I wrote down in my notes some of the worst stuff they had done up to this point, and I still agree with that because it's like that's the only album where I really was just like, wow, this is like I don't really have much to say about it. It's like positive. It's cringeworthy at times, some of the shit. And
Yeah.
once again, it does have cool moments. Every Slipknot album has cool moments, but this one it's fewer and farther between. I'm really searching for those moments where I go, yeah. It's more just me going, oh, how much longer has this fucking album got? Um, and the problem here, I'm gonna there's gonna be two sides to this opinion here. There is too much singing on this album because
Mm.
up to a certain point, and I'll tell you when we get there, up to a certain point, I could not stand Corey Taylor as a singer. His
Mm.
voice was too nasally. He sounded, you know, like a dude that you work with. You know, he's a coding guy at the office, and he's like, oh, I'm in a metal band too, and that's how he sounds when he sings. Does not sound like a fucking rock star singing. It sounds like random dude singing, and
Hmm.
I never liked it. Anytime he would start singing, I'd be like, can we just get back to the because like, you know, and I know people out there are just like, you couldn't do any better. Absolutely, I could do better. Now on the extreme vocal side of things, hell no, I couldn't do better than Corey Taylor. He has a really
Hmm.
big voice, and I like it. It sounds like he's barking at you, and it's not in a death metal way. It's great, but
Yeah.
singing at this point, especially on the Gray Chapter, I'm like, oh god, why is he doing it? Why is he singing again? Um, and also the production on this is kind of weak too. And
Yeah, I thought that
eh,
it's not as bombastic as previous albums at all.
no, and maybe that was a conscious choice. I don't know, but also um, I started to hear riffs where I go, I think they already did this. Riff blur
Riff Blur.
was happening where I go, I think this has already been done, not just by them, but by 50 other new metalish bands. So it was a tough one for me to get through, but I put it at number 7 instead of 8 because I'm like, well, it still sounds like a Slipknot album. It has that quality of what I come to Slipknot for, even though I was not very pleased with most of the stuff that was on it. So
Hmm.
that's why it comes in at number 7.
Cool. So my number 6 is the most recent entry, The End So Far, or as vinyl purchasers will know, The End For Now, because someone somewhere put the wrong title on the album cover, and now there's a bunch of LPs out there that are probably going to be worth a lot of money someday.
Wow. So I'm assuming that was the original title of the album, and then they changed it to The End So Far.
Yeah.
Um, which I guess I like that better. I like the end so far more than the end for now, because I'm assuming probably what it has a reference to is the fact that I think that they're parting ways with Roadrunner Records and going off on their own. If they're smart, they'll do a Metallica and just create their own label and do whatever the fuck they want, because they can totally do that.
And I'm gonna place my bets now. They're gonna call it Maggot Records or Maggot or something.
Because that's the fan base is maggots, right?
Yeah. I bet if they're gonna call it anything, they'd probably call it that.
Sounds cool to me.
Yeah, that would make sense. I'm
trying to remember is it one of the members of Slipknot? I was trying to remember who it was recently. It was a big metal band. It may have been Slipknot, where one of the members said that the idea of the album may not be what they're going for anymore.
That's Clown. That was
Clown.
Sean Cran.
Which you and I have talked about this. Like
people's attention spans are shorter nowadays.
Which is, and I honestly don't have a problem with that, because I feel like if you put all of your effort into a smaller group of songs, like I'd be down for EPs. Just start putting out every 2 years, give us an EP instead of an album every 4 years, and just take your strongest shit and put it out there. And that, I think that's a good enough of a middle ground, because sure, if people are only listening to 1 or 2 songs, they've listened to a good majority of the EP. And for people that want a little bit more and want to buy vinyl like I do, then you have an EP to buy. And so if that's the way they're going, that's a pretty fucking smart move, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah,
for a lot of bands. With that said, though, the end so far. So it starts off with this song called Adderall, which is this.
I'm going to do this for that song.
Yep.
I know I haven't gotten to my critique of that, but if anybody watched Old Bollocks by the time this comes out, you'll know how I feel. That song came on and I went, oh, I hope the whole album sounds like this. Because he's gotten to the point now in the past couple albums. I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. Past couple albums, I don't know what happened, but his singing is way better. Like, I don't know what happened, but I don't know if it's, I mean, obviously he's been singing a bunch, so you get better as you do that. But like, just the way his vocals sound on it, I was so shocked that I'm like, not only am I enjoying this song where he's singing the whole time, I'm really enjoying this song that sounds absolutely nothing like a Slipknot song. And so I was very happy listening to that song.
Yeah, it's this like vibey psychedelic kind of song. Yeah, it's really cool. And then, you get the dying song, Time to Sing, which is a heavy track, catchy chorus, good song. Nothing we haven't heard at this point, but it's Slipknot doing Slipknot well. Yeah. The Chapeltown Rag is pretty damn heavy. Yen has got this like vibey ballad vibe. Hive Mind is just blasting extreme metal influenced stuff. Warranty, the gang vocals on this one are pretty fun. Medicine for the Dead is this sludgy viber. Acidic is another vibed out chunky boy. I feel like this this album kind of takes like
not to interrupt you, but I would love it if maybe if you ever did like a solo album of music, instead of like trying to come up with song titles, just all the song titles are descriptors. So it's like track number 3, Chunky Boy or whatever, vibed out rocker or whatever. I would love that.
Yeah. See, what you guys don't realize is that all of my demos are literally called those things. And I might just not fucking change the titles. I'm just gonna be like, hey, like, I chuck some lyrics on this. This one's called Chug-a-Lugga Bing Bong. And it goes
that's great. What band is it that has a song where the name of the song is the sound of the riff? Who am I thinking of?
All I can think of right now is "Dig" by Mudvayne, and everybody just
No,
goes,
yeah.
"Berber dang, berber dang."
No, there's an actual song by a band, and the name of the song, if you say it along with the riff, you're like, oh, this sounds like the riff of the song. Who the fuck is it? Put it in the comments. I don't know who it is. I'll remember it later. In the middle of the night, I'll wake up and I'm like, oh my God, and I'll message you. It was them. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's cool. What I was gonna say is, I feel like the Ents so far took the atmosphere kind of focus of the Grey chapter, but gave it enough meat, like We Are Not Your Kind, and kind of did the best possible version of the last two Slipknot releases, you know, for me at least.
Yeah.
And so yeah, where was I at? Sorry. Acidic, yep, vibed out Chunky Boy.
Yeah.
Heirloom is groovy. H377, heavy bendy breakdown riffage, and the Sade, more Slipknot doing Slipknot, and Finale is a spooky closer. Honestly, it's of the most recent 3 Slipknot albums, I enjoyed it the most, but with that, I've still got tastes that lie elsewhere in the Slipknot pantheon.
Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah.
Moving on to my number 6. So if people who are watching this haven't already yelled at me for something I said, this is probably where everyone's going to yell at me.
Oh shit!
My number 6 is Iowa. From
they're gonna kill you, man.
Because I know a lot of old school fans, especially, really like this album. And I bought this album the day it came out because I was a fan of the first Slipknot album, and my feelings back in the day after listening to it all the way through was, well, they got heavier, but songwriting got worse. So like that was my take back then. So I never really got into that album because I'm like, well, there's not enough standout songs. It's just and a lot of bands do this, getting heavier for heavier's sake. Like this is going to have a blast beat. Why? It doesn't need it. Whatever. People will love it, and they do, because the metalheads all over the world are just like, it's got fucking blast beats, but the song is, it doesn't matter, metal. And I need more than that. So anyway, Iowa overall, more of the same. Pushing their sound a little bit, especially in heaviness and extremity, one of those words. So there's another thing with Corey Taylor, because the big thing that has kept me from getting into this band is Corey Taylor, unfortunately.
But what does Corey Taylor think of this?
Yeah, metal injection. So. And from all accounts, Corey Taylor seems like a great dude. So like, knowing me, one day I'm gonna meet him and he's gonna be totally great. I'm gonna be like, I'm sorry I said all those things about you, dude. But I'm being honest. So if I ever do meet Corey, hopefully he's the kind of dude that appreciates that I'm being honest here. So lyrically speaking, his lyrics also up until the last probably couple albums are horrible. Like to me, they come across like middle school angsty teen diary kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I know, because I wrote that kind of shit. I know. Yeah. And so, and that's probably another reason why you're into Slipknot. They called you an emo, because lyrically speaking, it's very just sort of like,
what's the matter, Steven? Never wanted to slit someone's throat and fuck the wound?
Yeah. I mean, not that I can remember, because like because that's a weird flex or a weird thing to say, because it's just like, I hate you so much, I'm going to slit your throat. Oh, but I'm also kind of turned on now, so I'm going to fuck you. No, I don't. That is a level of sexuality that I don't know. I don't understand. So it's fine. Whatever he wants to do. But, so there's more awful lyrics on here, and I can't, it's really hard to get past a lot of them. But also, not only like if you've noticed, I'm talking about earlier albums and not the most recent albums, because the things that have like they have kind of shed from Slipknot are things that I grew tired of real quick. The lyrics I didn't think were very good, and he like a lot of other vocalists around the time, all did that thing where I'm starting off kind of down here, and I'm just, oh
Yeah.
god, again, fucking shit, god damn it. Anyway,
It,
I said I was going to
I've
be positive about this. He's very good at doing those very generic style vocals.
I want to play a drinking game at some point with someone where you need to do like a vodka shot every time you hear him go like this, and you know, I'm gonna start off talking, then I'm gonna shout loud, you know.
Yeah, it's and then the sort of singing through my teeth kind of thing, and there's a lot of that. But my big problem, especially early on, is that he's not a good enough singer to make the melodic parts really lift the song the way that they need to, and it's kind of aggravating to me at times. But like I said, he got better. And on Iowa, there are some cool riffs. There's also riffs that sound very similar to riffs on the first album. And I almost feel like now that I've gone back and I've listened to this album again, I understand that they were trying to get heavier and be more aggressive, and I can hear that. It's fine. But there's extreme music out there that the aggressiveness and everything about it almost makes you feel energized. Like you're like, I'm gonna take on the fucking world. Whereas an album like Iowa, it's almost fucking exhausting. Like it's just like it just sounds like a young man getting to fuck for the first time and everything's real fast. Oh my god, I gotta do this now. And I'm just like, no, man, act like you've been here before. You don't need to. Yeah. We don't need all this. But I also understand that I'm one of those rare people that I don't consider myself a metalhead, even though I listen to mostly metal and heavy music because of that. Because I think that there are things that fans of metal, people who call themselves metalheads, and to the point where like, I fuck all other music except for metal. I understand why they hear things like that and they go, this is amazing because this is exactly what I want. But I'm being honest from my point of view. And I'm just like, there's not enough quality to the songwriting to justify all of the heavy extremeness of it. And also it's too damn long. And
yeah, there's
like
a 15-minute song that doesn't need to be 15 minutes.
Yeah. And Left Behind is a really it's a really aggravating song for me because it's the thing I'm talking about where I feel like the chorus of that song should be, oh my god, it's huge, but because of Corey's vocals, it's kind of, it lifts it up a little bit and you go, oh man, this could be really cool if somebody really good stepped in and did that chorus, it would be great. But it's just it's like it's a song that feels like it needs to be like, oh fuck yeah, and it's kind of and then it moves on. But it's got its moments. And so this one, halfway through this album, I was done. I was just like, it's like I hear positive qualities in this album, but by the midpoint, I'm just like, it doesn't matter. It all becomes just a jumble of Slipknottiness, and I'm just like, I'm done with it. And so, yeah, that's why Iowa is at number 6, which I realize that my opinion is vastly different than most people about that album, but I just, yeah. I realized that I started this whole episode off saying I was going to have a positive. Trust me, that's me being positive about this.
Well, I think the important thing to acknowledge while we're on the subject of Iowa is the horrible mental state they were all in when they made it.
Sure.
Like on following the first album's touring cycle, everyone was fucked up on something.
Yeah.
And I think that had a major factor, perhaps into the quality of the songwriting compared to, the heaviness of the songs. I think they were in a place, and I don't know whether or not that like kind of lore has made me appreciate the album more.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, it's an album I stick on if I want to be unsettled or if I want to be kind of pounded, you know, a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
But
I don't know the story
yeah,
of what's going on in their lives, and obviously everybody's has, you know, personal stuff, and I'm not going to discount any of that. But from my point of view as an outsider listening to an album,
true.
and I hear things about, oh, they were, you know, in a bad state mentally, or they were on drugs or whatever it was. Like, I just look at that as though I'm a dude that tried my best for many, many, many years to be in a band that could be successful. And so you're telling me these motherfuckers got successful and went, we're kind of upset about it. We're kind of having a bad time in our lives. I'm like, fuck you. I didn't get a chance to do that. So it's like, so I understand albums where like the band members like hate each other and shit like that. I get that. But if you're living the dream, and you're so unhappy that you now have to like put that into your music, there's a part of me that goes, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. I don't know. But who's to say? Because, you know, there are broken people out there that have put out amazing stuff, and you look at them and you go, why can't you be happier? And we all know, any of us that have dealt with depression know that that's not how it works. It's so, but from my area over here, I look at it and I go, what do you got to be upset about? You know, if you're playing to tens of thousands or more people the music that you created, I don't know. Now I feel stupid saying all of these things, because I'm just like, no. I get it. There's no guarantee that you're going to be happy when you get successful or rich or whatever. I understand how that works. I just feel like sometimes the excuse is kind of a crutch for things.
I understand, you know, I understand both sides of the story. I think it's just that, I mean, I think the dudes in Slipknot were fucked up from day one, and they've just had like something to channel it into. And I think that was the appeal to kids like me, kind of growing up around the time where we found it. And, you know, to a kid, what, like 11 years old, a bunch of scary dudes in boiler suits and horror-inspired Halloween masks playing angry music full of fucks and shits and thrown to the motherfucking dome. Like, that's scary, you know. That's scary when, you know, you're a middle schooler, like you said.
Yeah, you're right. To be fair, though, I had the same gripes or sort of a different take even with Korn, and I've always liked Korn, but even I was all like, you're still depressed. You're a rock star now, and you're still depressed. But I know I'm not doing anybody any favors by having that kind of outlook. But so yeah.
I feel like, you know, there is always going to be that thing of like, I always look at all of the 80s hair metal bands and I think to myself, you guys are living my dream life, and you guys can't walk into a fucking room and just play a song together. Jesus titty fucking Christ. Like,
that's why it's important to check yourself before you wreck yourself, as Ice Cube once said.
Because I'm bad for your health. I come real stealth, dropping bombs on you.
Because sometimes those initial reactions, like, you know, like I'm having, you know, talking about, you know, rock stars who are depressed. Yeah. You know, that's a good example of, like, you know, sometimes the way that you feel is not necessarily well informed or well thought out. And so so once you take a step back and you go, all right, if you're truly a person that has emotional or mental issues, all of a sudden being in a successful band isn't going to help you out. Case in point, Kurt Cobain. So, you know, who I'm a huge Nirvana fan. So it's interesting. That was I feel like I'm at a psychologist meeting right now, and I should be laying down on a couch, because I'm just like, I feel like I went through a whole trip in my mind where I went, here's how I feel. I shouldn't feel that way. And then I learned something from it, and everybody here got to experience me learning. Even at almost 45 years old, you if you're worth a damn, you're always going to be learning, folks. That's when that more you know thing should,
Isn't
you
it great that we're all better people?
know. Yeah.
Fishing.
Hey, that's a for next time, guys. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
little hint, little hint.
Mm-hmm.
What were we
Little
talking about?
tease. Uh,
Oh, I
yeah.
had
Where
just
were
finished
we?
Iowa.
Yes. Okay.
On to number 5. This is going to be a jam-packed, full, long-ass episode. This episode is going to be almost as long as a Slipknot album.
Yeah. Oh damn. So my number 5 is Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses.
This is what number is this?
Well, this is my number 5, Volume
Also,
3.
Also my number 5, Volume 3,
okay.
The Subliminal Verses. So we matched up here on our number 5.
Nice. Let's just camp out here and
Sure.
really dissect this fucker. So starting right out of the gate, I'm going to say this now. This is the beginning of a trend that Slipknot would pretty much continue to the present day.
Yeah.
Where that is the marriage of extreme metal and butt rock. And you can have a really heavy fucking verse and then you sing about the chorus, and
which is what like screamo and things like that, they were already doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, I will give it to Slipknot to have the restraint to not go no during the songs, but they came pretty fucking close with this album here. So with that, let's dive on in.
Okay.
So
Rick Rubin produced this one, so it sounds pretty good.
Yeah. So Volume 3, Prelude 3.0 is this vibey intro track. It's a whole ass song. It's not just, the whole thing I think is sick. The whole thing I think is sick sort of thing. Then you get The Blister Exists. Fucking awesome. Like, there's awesome shit going on in this song. 3-0 has some like death metal inspired groovage. And then we reach one of the unavoidable iconic anthems of my generation, Duality.
Which that's baffling to me. It's baffling to me that anybody thinks this is a good song.
Yeah, but you say these words to my generation and they'll know exactly what to say. Even if they only had friends who liked Slipknot, they know this song. And all you have to do is go, I push my fingers into my eyes, and it's basically like Sweet Caroline.
I was gonna say
fucking
butthole.
emo kids. Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard all those really sexually explicit parodies of Slipknot songs? Yeah,
I have.
My ass against the wall. Yeah. Make me drink your pee.
Yeah,
they just crack me up. But yeah, again, Duality is just one of hell. That song might as well be fucking Smells Like Teen Spirit to the Hot Topic kids of my fucking era.
Don't mention those two songs in the same breath. That is, you take that back. That is.
I hate to do it, but it's unavoidable. It's one of those that just got played so much.
Why is it not? I feel, man, it's like, I think it's probably because like this is a band, they also did a song like Eyeless, which is fucking amazing, and then Duality is so just like.
Yeah,
it's I mean, but it makes sense because I think at that point, people that were into metal and heavier music were into them, whereas by the time of Volume 3, I feel like other people were now jumping on, because I think this is post Stone Sour, so I think the crowd of melodic rock fans were on board, and so I guess it makes sense.
Well, a little known, I mean, I don't know how little known it is, but to the outsider looking in, you would think that Slipknot was Corey's first band, which it is not. Stone Sour actually formed in '92. So, didn't they not put out an album until after Slipknot was already a thing? I think it was post Slipknot they started putting stuff out, but they'd been working on stuff for a long time. But yeah. Again, Duality is one of those unavoidable icon songs of the 2000s metal era.
Yeah.
Opium of the People is, again, like I say, as heavy as parts of this album are, I consider this to be the first major step in emos adopting Slipknot as the token heaviest band on their iPod. Um,
Yep.
Circle. To add further to that, we have Circle, which is the first acoustic ballad type thing we encounter in their discography.
On my notes it says Circle. I couldn't even make it through this song.
Oh shit! For real?
Yeah,
Damn,
it's
dude.
this
Total
is because
skipper.
his singing is just so bad on these albums that I can't get past it. It's the same reason why there's a lot of bands that like I can't get into them, because I'm like, look, if I can sing better than you and I'm mediocre at best, then I can't give you any props whatsoever.
Damn, dude. That's a pretty scathing review.
That being
Yeah.
said, he seems like a lovely bloke, you know.
Yeah. Um here we go. Here's a welcome change. But we got a guitar solo in Welcome.
Mhm.
And this is the first time where leads really come into prominence. I mean, if you exclude Make, Feed, Kill, Repeat.
Yeah.
This is the first album where lead guitars really jump out and shine, because there's no solos on Self-Titled and Iowa,
Yeah.
which is a stylistic choice of the era.
And that dates it to this point.
Yeah.
Kirk.
Can I just say something I think is bullshit? Oh, dude, Vermilion is this like much more melodic song. Again, is that one that you managed to make it through or no?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
just, it was just, to be fair, like when I say I couldn't make it through it, I just started to do something else while I was listening to it. Because I just had to distract myself. But I listened to every single song on all of these albums all the way through. And as much as I wanted to jump ship a few times, I did not. I was a trooper. Yeah.
All of the fucking like all of the like OG Hot Topic kids are going fucking boomers right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is some boomer shit. Well, I mean, to be fair, like, it's Iron Maiden would be considered a Gen X band, not a boomer band. So
Yeah.
because the boomers would have been like listening to stuff in the late 60s, early 70s. I think by the time Maiden,
Yeah.
I don't know. I always get really mixed up at the generations, because I'm Generation X, but I'm on like the tail end of Generation X because I was born in 78.
Right.
But I think
Yeah.
I think it's people born in like what 60 something. I don't know what the years are, but it's like in the 60s. So I feel like the Gen Xers would have been teenagers when Iron Maiden came out, and then that's
Yeah, to me, Gen X stereotypically, I think of grunge, like, but
absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird to think about, because even with like, you think about like millennials, like there are millennials who they grew up on grunge, and it's just because of like when they were born or whatever. So it's a weird
strange,
thing. The generation thing is so weird, and I still don't understand it, because it's become such a big thing to be like, millennials, you'll never understand this. And I'm just like, you sound like a fucking idiot when you say things like that. I never, because like, imagine like, me as a young, metal / grunge kid in the early 90s, and to have somebody come up to me and be like, you'll never have it as good as Glenn Miller's orchestra. And I'd be like, you go fuck yourself, granddad.
Yeah, like for me, we're just gonna camp out in this generation thing real quick.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
you guys are getting your patience for our silence for a couple of weeks. You guys are now getting it all in a big lump sum right now.
Yeah. So I did some looking a while back, and I discovered that I am what is considered a zillennial, and that is
Okay.
the crossing over point from millennials to Gen Z.
Ah,
So, your daughter, for example, I believe would be considered Gen Z,
yeah,
whereas I am like the very beginning of her generation and the very end of the millennials. So I was born in 97. So I
yeah,
believe there's like anyone in the latter half of the 90s, born in the latter half of the 90s, is a zillennial. Because we grew up with a little thing called the VHS DVD combo machine, where you could
yes,
watch both analog and digital formats. And
yep,
I think I always thought that's a very interesting. um I mean, that's my generation's iconic piece of technology, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Which is funny
When it
because
comes
now
to,
now the idea of the DVD is pretty much. I mean, there are people that collect DVDs still, and they still put out DVDs, but for the most part, that's not a thing that people talk
yeah,
about anymore.
yeah, people always rant and rave about streaming until their favorite show is taken down because another company bought the rights to it. So now you've got to buy another streaming service. And that is why if I like something enough, I will still buy the physical version of it because I
Yeah.
will. Listen, man, I walked in right in that office, grabbed him by his big fat head, and I said, "Listen, man, I'm not going to jail for you or anybody." I had to
Don't
do that
don't
quote.
don't blow all that out, sir. We have another episode coming.
There's enough quotes. I mean, to be fair, that episode is probably just going to be us recounting the script from start to finish.
um,
Yeah,
what the fuck were we on? Oh yeah, we were talking about the generations, which is it's interesting. So you
yeah.
could say that, like, maybe the biggest reason why I don't connect with a lot of what Slipknot does is because I'm Gen X and I'm not,
Hmm.
because like that is true. Like if you come into music at a different time and you don't have all this other shit to like compare it to or whatever, then things sound very different and have a way different impact. Case in point, duality. Like
Yeah.
if you're a young person and you hear that song and you don't have all this other info and shit on top of it, then maybe it fucking changed your life. And so more power to you.
Real quick, right? While we're on the subject, I'm gonna.
It's not going to be
I
quick,
no,
folks.
it's
Sorry.
not. Okay. I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna go onto Spotify and I'm gonna type in 2000s metal. Where is it? 2000s metal classics. Slipknot is literally the profile picture. And let's find out what the first. Duality is literally the first song on the fucking playlist.
Wow.
Like,
What the fuck do I know? Like I'm the old guy on this podcast.
yeah, but it's, I'm inclined to agree with you because I do think. I think if I'm going to say, what era do you prefer rock wise? The 2000s or the 2010s? Because I have this debate with myself in my head.
Um
Because I think they're very similar.
I don't I That's a really hard question because there's so much that I don't like about all of it. But
Yeah.
because like it's very few and far between like newer rock bands that I hear that I really like.
Hmm.
But at least in the early 2000s, you still had System of a Down and Rage Against the Machine and some really quality shit happening. Whereas,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it rock music eventually led into things like the Black Keys, which is like you might as well just beat me over the head with a fucking mallet for an entire album because it's going to be more enjoyable. But then now I don't know, dude. I'm gonna go with the early with the 2000s because the early 2000s I think Mastodon came out of that and
Had some
Dillinger Escape
residual.
Plan. Like
True.
there's great bands from that era, and I think now there's way less newer bands that I feel excited about. Because if you're talking about 2010s, I guess you would then start talking about Gojira and bands like that. Because I think
Yeah.
Gojira started earlier, but you know what I mean. I think they came to term, whatever.
Came to prominence. Yeah.
Yeah, in the 2010s. What
Cool.
would you
So
what would you choose?
I don't know. I guess. Oh, hmm. I don't know. I think there's pros and cons to both. I think because I experienced the 2010s a little more firsthand, I'd be more inclined to go for that solely based on um, at least I'm able to search out things that are much more my style.
Yeah,
And I'm talking, if I'm honest, generally bands that play in styles that aren't exactly mainstream popular anymore. So I like a lot of, traditional heavy metal stuff. I like a lot of like glam metal, 80s hard rock revival stuff. There's bands
sure.
coming out now that, I really enjoy. I really like that what's that what's that woman called? Chaz Kane. She put out a
Oh,
really good like Vixen-esque
throwback kind of
album.
rock.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for. See, that's the thing. Someone said to me one time, "You're gonna eventually run out of stuff to listen to," and I'm like, "No, I'm not." They're like, "But you're limited to a time period." And I say to them, "Do you know how much fucking music was released in the 70s, 80s, and 90s? It's more
Yeah,
than I can probably get through in a lifetime." And if that ends up being my music taste, so be it. There's bands that come out now and I see live and I enjoy,
yeah.
but there's just something about the 70s, 80s, and 90s that it just hits something for me that
Yeah,
a sizable chunk of more modern rock and metal bands. I mean, something has to be really special for it to
yeah.
catch my attention.
I mean,
Gojira, for example.
I mean, a lot of the shit that I listen to is from the '80s and the '90s,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of music, and I'm constantly searching for something that I may have missed. And on top of
Hmm.
that, I'm constantly going back and revisiting things because eventually, things that if they have a quality to them, it's going to reveal itself to me, and I'm going to get into it at some point. And so, like the biggest one recently for me is I've now actually become a big fan of '80s Judas Priest. So whereas
Ah,
to where now I'm wanting to collect the original albums on vinyl. I've gotten 3 of them so far.
nice.
I got Ram It Down, Turbo, and Defenders of the Faith, and I love
Sweet.
that shit. And
Yeah,
so,
me too.
but I wouldn't consider myself a Judas Priest fan. But for some reason, that sweet spot of the '80s stuff has become something that I'm thoroughly enjoying, and
High
that
five.
music,
Bam.
and that music is now what 40 years old, and so
Yeah.
or a little bit, yeah, some of it, and so it never, if you really are a big fan and you're really digging and really like active with your music listening and discovery, like eventually, you're not going to really run out of stuff. And it's cool because I'm so not really into modern stuff. The fact that there's just a few bands here and there that pop up every once in a while, it's a
Makes them
nice
more
surprise
special.
because because I'm just like, well, I'm in this area over here, and then eventually a band pops up now, and I go, oh, that's newer sounding, and I really like it. And so it's just, it's just a slower process of finding stuff than back in the day. Like we talked about on the podcast we were on, where we talked about 1991 and all those amazing albums
Yeah.
coming out within 44 days of each other, and you just expect that to be the rest of your life. Oh shit, like every 6 months is going to be like 5 amazing albums coming out, and that's just
Yeah.
not that is how it, I mean, a lot of good shit came out in that period of time, but once again, for younger people, maybe there is like tons of shit that's coming out that, not, I use the word shit as in lieu of the word
Yeah.
stuff, because I'm all about cussing as much as I can, like me and old school Corey Taylor.
Fuck
Anyway,
yeah.
we're still on volume 3 because this is both our number 5. We are
Yeah.
not, we are not even halfway through, folks. So
Yeah.
get strapped in.
Get comfy. Maybe grab another bevy and
Pause it and go make some tea or grab a beer or whatever your pleasure is, and
hell
then
yeah.
yeah.
Hell, whack off for a week here.
Yeah, man, maybe they'll clear your mind a little bit and you can come back to us.
Yeah. So with that, let's head on back over to the track listing with
Yes.
Pulse of the Maggots, which is a rallying cry to fans of Slipknot, which I think is cool. I found that a very enjoyable song.
Yeah.
And I bet it fucking goes off live. Like, that is a song built for a live setting. Yeah. Like, it's just stuff like that I do like.
Yeah.
Before I forget, much like Duality, this is a generational big song. Like, if Slipknot put a single out in the mid to late 2000s, everyone who wore black fucking loved it. You know?
All right.
And I think this one was on Guitar Hero 3, which, you know, Guitar Hero was a massive part of my generation as well.
Yeah. So when this album came out, like I didn't even listen to it because this is around the time that I had really started to get back into metal. So half of me was going back and revisiting all the old shit, again. But then the other part of me was like, oh, there's bands like Mastodon and Cephalic Carnage and this stuff that is really great shit. And I'm just like, you can have your Slipknot. I'm searching for the good shit.
Yeah. I always affectionately referred to them as Slapnuts. Just yeah. What's your favorite Slapnut song? And they'd be like, "Excuse me?" I'd be like, I push my fingers into my ass. It's just like, see how long I can keep it going. And, it's just
I kind of like that Slapnuts, but still with a K.
Yeah.
K-N-U-T-S.
Yeah. Yeah. We do a lot of trolling. Vermilion Part 2, we're back in the ballad zone. The Nameless, there's lots of cool different parts in this one. The Virus of Life is vibey, weird heaviness. And Danger, Keep Away, outro track. I did a little different dance there because there weren't any brackets, but there's like 2 dashes there. Let's shake up the formula a little bit. I don't really have much else to say on Volume 3 other than they kind of took the heaviness where it could go, so they just got really melodic.
Yeah.
And
it's my number 5, and honestly, it's the last one where there weren't really qualities that jumped out that I went, I feel like this is a pretty good album. I mean, it's got its moments, but not enough, and it's too long. And the thing at this point that was getting aggravating and listening to their albums all the way through was I felt like the band was trying to progress, but the singer was not, and it was aggravating to me because I feel like there's a genuine effort to expand the sound on this album. I just think that as an overall package, it falls short a lot, and so just not enough cool parts for me to have very much to say positively for Volume 3, the subliminal verses.
Yes.
And just number 4.
Okay. So my number 4 is the album that was the current album when I got, kind of passively into Slipknot, which was All Hope Is Gone.
Okay. All right.
So, this is the, fourth, technically fifth album chronologically that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And this one tends to get panned by the Slipknot fan base, and I'm not entirely sure as to why, because to me it feels like a step up from its predecessor. Like in terms of, like it feels more focused. The heavy parts are heavier, the softer parts are better utilized. And I think you know what, I'm just going to dive in. So dot execute dot, it's a weird intro sort of thing leading into Gematria, the Killing Name, which is this brutal techie, thrashy opener. I fucking love this song.
Yeah.
If Slipknot did more stuff like this, I'd probably be way more into them. But like I was listening to this song in the car for the first time in like 10 years the other day. And I thought to myself, holy fucking shit. Like, did these guys listen to And Justice for All or something and just suddenly discover proggy thrash stuff? Because holy goddamn shit, that song floored me. Sulfur. Now, I'm gonna mention some video game stuff here, but this is like way out of anything I've ever mentioned before on here because this track was on a racing game called. I even had to look it up because I haven't played it in years. It's on a racing game called Motor Storm Pacific Rift, and the first thing I think that game is the first thing I think of when this song comes on because it's one of the main songs in the game.
Interesting.
And I just remember racing around on these tracks to this song, just thinking this is fucking cool.
Are racing games even a thing anymore? Like, are they popular at all? Like, I haven't heard. Like, I remember back in the day, I had friends that fucking loved, was it called Gran Turismo or something like that?
I had Gran Turismo 4 on my PS2 when it was like the newest game out, and I was such a fucking...
And that was like a big deal. I've never been a big video game guy, but I know enough to where, like, if my small group of friends who were really into video games, I knew they were at one point obsessed with GoldenEye, and at one point they were obsessed with, what's the fucking swords game? Why do I want to say Soul Calibur? Is that right?
There's a lot of those.
I just remember there being these particular games that they were like, they didn't say, hey, we're going to go play video games. They said, hey, we're going to go play Gran Turismo. Like, it was like, it was a big deal.
Yeah. What was it? Like, the big one, I think the big one now is like Forza Horizon or something. Apparently the graphics on it are insane. I'm a little out of the loop with racing games. Yeah. But as a kid, like, it was one of the most accessible ways to just get a friend to play a video game with you because the sole purpose was beat me to the finish line. That's it.
Do you want to know? You can probably guess. What do you think the last video game that I played quite a bit? Now, I'll give you a hint. It was with my daughter, but if you can think of what it might be.
Are we talking a racing game here?
Kind of.
Mario Kart?
We did play a lot of Mario Kart, but that's a little bit older. This is it's a more recent one. Within the past 6 years probably is when it came out, which is funny because now I'm all like, oh, now I can't even remember the name of it. But if I explain it to you, you'll know what game it is.
I'm blanking, dude. You'll have to.
Okay. So it's so funny that because I haven't played it in a while because like once we moved into this house, my daughter like had her own room and her own thing, and she's becoming a young preteen now. And so I'm just like, okay, you do your thing. But we used to play this game. Why can't I think of the name of it right now? It's literally you're in race cars and you're fucking pushing a ball. It's like soccer with cars.
Rocket League.
We played so much Rocket League. I can't even explain. And I never got better at it. It's just I would play it and I just got so frustrated and I would like my car would be flipping over on the back. I'm like, why can't I do this right? It's like I'm just, but that was the big one with me and my daughter for a while. We played a lot of Rocket League.
My favorite racing game growing up was a game called Burnout Revenge, and like it was pretty much Need for Speed, but like the meaner, dirtier version. Where you were rewarded for crashing other people's cars and stuff like that, and like you would get extra points for like taking someone out with a certain part of the track and things like that. God, that's a good one. I need to play.
Fuck, I remember playing pole position. Like that was a big deal. And these are more like in the arcade. Like when I used to actually go to arcades and they would play. But the Outrun was more expensive, so I didn't play it very much. But we would play like, there was one where it was big and you had four wheels and it was all on like dirt trucks on dirt tracks, off-road. I think it was called off-road.
Yeah.
And but instead of playing with joysticks, there were wheels and you would steer them and stuff. But God, that was such good memories of like the arcade. But once everyone just started playing games at home, like that's when I was like, I can't really. I'm gonna go do something else. So
Oh man, you should see me just dumping money into Pac-Man machines if I ever see them. Like I'm like, fuck paying for the parking. I'll pay for the ticket down the line. It's Pac-Man time.
yeah, my for old school games, mine is Galaga. I love playing
Oh
Galaga. Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, there's so many good ones.
What
But
about
yeah,
Slipknot though?
yeah, like
Slap nuts. Let's get back to slap nuts.
nuts. So yeah, let's start slapping these nuts.
Ow.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I'm like, that's not a good name at all.
No. Now, I will say, I think Psychosocial is a way better song than Duality. It's a way better song than Before I Forget. I personally think, outside of the first album, this is arguably their best song.
Oh,
because
all right.
to me, getting into metal in 2010, this was basically my generation's Enter Sandman. Everyone knew Psychosocial. It's just such it's a killer fucking riff, you know. I fucking love that. Everybody knows that I did my time. Everyone knows the chorus and the breakdown in the middle. Yeah, like every part of that song, I think is fucking great. You know, for as biased as I am towards old school metal, when it comes to modern metal, if all modern metal songs were of this level of quality and memorability, I'd be a way bigger fan.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got Dead Memories, which is the quote unquote rock song single from this album. Vendetta is this swingy metal with some brutal double kicks going on. Butcher's Hook is a strangely djenty kind of song. Gehenna is a vibey one. This Cold Black is a heavy one. Wherein Lives Continue has some cool vocal harmonies in it. And now here's something that ties in perfectly with the subject matter. So we have the song Snuff. I don't know if you've heard the TikTok sound of the kid dressed as an emo, like going like, "Don't talk to me, I'll murder you."
Yeah.
And then immediately pivoting to, "Oh, the pain in my heart, I want to kill you in the night." Like that's what I kind of get when you hear this album and then you get to Snuff. It's like, that's got to be one of my favorite sounds on that app, dude, because like I've seen so many things of like when you're 12 years old and discover drop D tuning for the first time. I want to kill my mom. I want to kill my dad. You know,
I love that. That is a funny sound that makes me laugh every time I hear it.
That cracks me up as well. But yeah, and then close out the title track, All Hope Is Gone. There's very clear extreme metal influence on it, and you know, to me, I think this is one of the better Slipknot albums, you know, hence it cracked the upper half for me.
Yeah.
But to me, there is an era of Slipknot I find myself much more drawn to, which is basically when Corey Taylor had dreads coming out of his mask, you know? But as far as all the later albums go, I think All Hope Is Gone is my favorite of the 5. So yeah. Sure.
Okay,
back
cool.
to you.
So for my number 4, we're gonna this gets interesting because I feel like my ranking is probably way different because of my viewpoint on the band and, you know, just my taste in general. But my number 4 is We Are Not Your Kind from 2019. Now, this is at this point, the band had already gotten a little bit better, in my opinion. And in listening to their albums in order, this was one that I had heard some songs from when it came out. I think all the albums I hear some songs from, but this one was more recent enough that I remembered them.
Yeah.
And the first thing, and this was also the way I thought about this back in 2019 when this album came out. When they announced that the album was called We Are Not Your Kind, I was just like, so are you're telling me that like two years before or something, when one of the biggest metal albums was called You Will Never Be One of Us by Nails, and everybody loved that album. I was not one of those people. I don't think it's very good, but it's almost like they said, "Oh, that's a good title. Let's just sort of switch it around and be like, hey, fellow kids, we're also not one of you." And it's because it's like, it's not a very good album title in my opinion, especially when a high profile metal release on everybody's top 10 was called You Will Never Be One. Why can't I say that? You Will Never Be One of Us. And so that already I was like, come on, guys. Once again, album cover, hot topic. So it's not great. But that being said, I feel like this album is still, it's a higher quality Slipknot album for me, even though it's still got so much of Slipknot just doing Slipknot. I absolutely understand that. But they've abandoned pretty much all of the qualities that I really didn't like about Slipknot at this point. They're gone. There's no rapping anymore. I can't remember if in the last few albums, if you do that, I don't think he does any of that anymore. I mean, obviously there's a building of vocal parts, but that's just natural. But it's not that insert this type of vocal part here kind of shit anymore. And Corey Taylor is singing, in my opinion, got better. And so it stopped taking me out of the music when he would do the melodic parts, because I was just like, okay, I'm kind of down with this. But the one thing that I had to like sort of admit to myself, it was around the point of this album where I could clearly say, oh, their albums are getting better, or I'm enjoying them more than this other period of time of Slipknot. But even then, there was still so much that in my brain I was critical of, that at that point I just resigned to the fact that they are not my kind. I'm just like, I'm just not a Slipknot fan, and that's fine. It's absolutely fine. Because they have enough fans. They don't need me. But I think it's a pretty enjoyable album that has some cool songs on it, and the overall package of it, I think, is good. In fact, it's the first one that I've looked at on my notes that does not say the album is too damn long, because I wrote that on all the rest of them. And I'm assuming this album is probably just as long as a lot of the other ones, but
I didn't feel it.
It didn't feel like super long. So yeah, kudos for them for putting out We Are Not Your Kind, because it's better. It's way better than the title. So I couldn't get out of there with like another jab, could I? Positive Steven is just not gonna happen, folks. I apologize, but I like things about that album, so that's why it's my number 4.
Cool, no problemo. So we enter the top 3.
Yep,
and we're in bronze medal territory now. Here is my number 3 with Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat.
Wow, that shit got up high for you.
Well, here's the thing, and I find myself drawn to the era of Slipknot where things genuinely were kind of fucking scary and kind of edgy and dangerous. Like, they were kind of the Jackass of bands, where it was like, you genuinely don't know if one of these motherfuckers is going to seriously injure themselves or someone else,
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but is there live footage of this version of the band out there that have you seen it? Like what they were like at this point?
Somewhere, but I don't think there's an awful lot of it. There's definitely like some shots and possibly some video footage.
Yeah.
But to me, this, it does feel disjointed, and it definitely has that kind of demo vibe going on. But you know, I'm kind of outing myself as a hipster with this one. But I thought it's such an interesting time capsule, and the fact that they're wearing their influences so heavily on their sleeve is kind of really endearing to me. And
Sure.
as someone who's a big fan of the bands that clearly influenced them, you know, like Faith No More, Mr. Bungle, that
Yeah.
sort of you know, genre bending stuff. You know, it's there are moments on here that make me laugh in like a I can't argue with this groove. Hell yeah. But you know, Slipknot, the opening track, is basically a slower, longer, more progressive version of
That's sick.
Sick,
Yeah.
which you know would show up on the self-titled 1999 album.
Which it's funny, like a lot of times if you take something and speed it up, I would be like, oh, it's probably not going to be as good. But I really do. Once I heard that riff, I'm like, this is too slow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's for me the most interesting thing to note right off the bat is the presence of guitar solos. You know, which wouldn't show up again on another Slipknot release until their like mid to late 2000s era.
Yeah.
Gently is a pretty different and honestly more interesting version of Gently than what would appear on Iowa, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Then you get Do Nothing, Bitch Slap, and you get this funky bungle influence, Count Me In. The disco funk break could be among my favorite Slipknot moments just because of how batshit insane it is.
Yeah.
Only One is another funk metal song, this time with some more rapping on it. Tattered and Torn is probably the most fully formed version of one of the tracks that would appear down the line.
But I mean, there's not much to that track. So it's like, you know.
Yeah. Confessions, again, I adore funk metal. So this album gets bonus points from me because I'm a shameless funk metal addict. Some Feel is a heavy ass song. Killers Are Quiet is this like drony, doomy kind of one. And then Dogfish Rising is this industrial weirdness. And all of a sudden, oh, somebody's listened to Primus. But yeah, I love it so much because it's so fucking strange.
Yeah.
And like it sticks out like a sore thumb. And it comes down to up until volume 3, they still felt unpredictable. And I wish that maybe following volume 3 and, you know, All Hope Is Gone, they would have perhaps, instead of honing in on what Slipknot became, they expanded further by like reintroducing some more funky stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like as the band that they became, you know, after a couple albums, they could have pulled it off, and I think it would have been cool. So I agree with you then about that.
Yeah. See, that's my big thing about why I love this release so much, is that it is disjointed. There are parts on it that frankly sound wrong, but there's so many moments on it where I think, oh, but I wish they'd kind of kept elements of this, you know? Like
Yeah.
Do Nothing, Bitch Slap is, if they could like bring even a slither of that, what the fuck is happening kind of thing going on back into their sound, that'd be great. But
guys,
yeah.
are you watching? No.
Yeah. But you know, to each their own. I just happen to love this late 90s, early 2000s era of the band because I genuinely don't know what's coming sometimes.
Sure.
And I feel like that's something that was lost volume 3 onward, where they became a bit more predictable. They have the odd song here or there, but nothing as off the wall nuts as Make Feed Kill Repeat. So back over to you.
Cool. So my number 3 is their most recent album, The End So Far, from this particular year. And I there's a part of me that thought, well, maybe this shouldn't go up that high because it's new. And usually I'm all like, albums need more time. But to be fair, I'm not going to give any of these albums, most of these albums, more time. But that being said, from this point on, these 3 albums all have qualities that would make me go back to them. Even though like I would not consider myself a Slipknot fan, there are things on here. Number one being the song Adderall that opens this album, where I just think it's a fucking great song. And I don't care who's doing it. It's good. Yeah. And it's Corey Taylor singing, and he sounds great. And I'm on board. This is cool. And unfortunately, it goes to track 2, which literally just sounds like 10 other Slipknot songs. And so, but it wasn't bad. It's fine, but it's just like, okay, more of the same here. And some of it does kind of sound like re-recordings of older parts with different lyrics on top of it. And once again, I think that that's because of the thing we're talking about, where they have the Slipknot color palette and it's not very big. It's a smaller palette now. So if you're only pulling from these things, you don't have a lot of room. That being said, there are really good songs on this album. Yin is a fucking great song. And I was very surprised to just hear, there are songs on some of their albums that I hear and I go, this is just without a doubt a good song. I can't say anything, about it. But I really like, while listening to this, and I also talked about this album on Old Bollocks, I mentioned that if I was a really big Slipknot fan, I would probably love this album because it's a really good quality version of what they do, not changing things too much. But in the beginning, they throw kind of a curveball, but it's done very well. And then you get right back into, Slipknot world. And I feel like everybody has just gotten so good at what they do. And I genuinely enjoyed some of this album. So yeah, it ended up being at number 3 because I'm just like, well, even though it's brand new, a few of these albums that are older were also brand new to me for the most part. And the fact that this one hit me as like, okay, there's some good shit on here. The albums like this justify them being this really big band to me because I can see, younger people or just, people that like that sound thinking that this is a fucking great album. So
yeah,
it goes at number 3 for me.
Nice. Cool. So my number 2 is an album you had a lot further down, and that is Iowa.
All right.
Cool. So Iowa. It's a crazy place. Now, it's first of all, we have 515, which is haunting, screaming, scary ass shit, kind of chopped up. I'm pretty sure from what I remember hearing, it is chopped up recordings of Sid Wilson crying after finding out a family member had died, and they stuck it on the album. And like, apparently that's the lore.
So who recorded that? Who's the asshole that recorded that? if that's actually true, if you give a damn, it's all like you all of a sudden, like somebody in your family dies and you're really upset about it. And I'm like, quick, let's get the Zoom recording going. I'm assuming that's probably not true because I would be so pissed off. But maybe he recorded himself. Maybe he was just like, let's get this on a recording for use on the next Slipknot album.
Yeah, it was certain. I think it's definitely Sid Wilson crying about something, and they recorded it, chopped it up, and turned it into the intro to this fucking insane slab of music. So People Equal Shit is a blasting, angry, furious opener of a track. Disaster Piece, extreme metal influence, very clear from these first 2 songs. Definitely up the ante on the heaviness. My Plague, cool atmospheric chorus on this one. Everything Ends. Now, this is the part where, for me, I feel like it takes a bit of a dip.
Yeah.
Very new metal riffage going on here. The Heretic Anthem, The screams Corey does on this album are awesome, but from what I've heard, the technique he uses around this time is notoriously the wrong way to fucking scream, and
Oh,
it's
really?
really bad for your voice. Yeah.
Yeah, I would never.
Yeah.
I would be a horrible extreme metal vocalist because I have no. I mean, I've been in bands where I did screaming in it, but it wasn't the only thing that I was doing. And I guarantee you, I probably was doing it wrong. Probably fucking up my voice for life.
I mean, it probably sounded rad at the time, but it's not a sustainable thing if you do it wrong.
Yeah.
But Gently is a slow burner. Left Behind, I agree that it could be elevated higher. I still like it as a song.
Yeah.
The Shape has a cool chorus on it. That sort of thing on there. I Am Hated. It's somehow brutal and still quite hip hoppy and rappy. Skin Ticket is a vibey crusher. No Abortion's got some more crazy heaviness going on. Metabolic, Water Bottle. Nothing new. Nothing new at this point in the album, but like it does keep that frenetic vibe going.
Just like the other one, British people be like, "I'm British."
Yeah. The only tea we use is the one we drink. But like honestly, the title track at the end, Iowa, definitely didn't need to be 15 whole minutes. But I guess the album is largely over at that point, so it's your choice if you want to stick around.
Yeah,
like it's kind of like a credit sequence. You know, you get up and leave the cinema while it's still running. But yeah, you know, I'll agree. The songs aren't as memorable as the debut, and I feel like the songwriting could be stronger. However, there is something about the Iowa era that I particularly like.
Yeah.
With the live shows, were just fucking nuts. I say that like I was there, but I've seen footage and it just looks really fun. Yeah, you know, it would have been kind of irresponsible to throw a 3-year-old child into a Slipknot pit, but
yeah.
I'd have been the coolest motherfucker on earth if that happened, though. Anyway, I mean, I like Iowa. It's the heaviest album they ever did. I like a large number of the songs on it. I do find some of the lyrics on here very middle school, you know.
But it wasn't. But to be fair, it wasn't. It also wasn't just them. Like there was a. It was a trend of a lot of bands doing that kind of shit, and some bands, in my opinion, just did it way better to where they were just better with their words and phrasings of things. I guess.
I hate you. You hate me. Let's hang Barney from a tree, sort of thing. You know.
Yeah.
But there are parts on here where I kind of cringe a little bit. You know, the 555, I'm 666.
What does that even mean? Do you know what that even means? Because it sounds like something that somebody just comes up with that sounds cool, so you can say 666 in a song, and you're brutal now.
I think it was something to do with the record company, and they were like, "Well, fuck you. If you don't want to sell a heavy album, we'll make a heavier album." But
got it.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the one. That's the one thing I have to resign to is that like I don't know enough about it. So things that to me are annoying or lame probably have a meaning that I just have no fucking clue. But once again, this is I'm coming at this as a person who's not a fan. So
yeah, another one for me was that you are all fucked and overrated. I think I'm gonna be sick and it's your fault. And there's just a delivery there that I feel like it could have been delivered in a cooler way. But yeah, that being said, I mean, they've sold millions and I haven't, so
yeah, neither have I. Yeah. So fuck, why are you even listening to this?
Yeah, we just wasted 2 whole hours of your time.
Fuck off. And we're not even done yet. We got 2. We have you're going to be happy to know that we have the same number 1 because my number 2 is All Hope Is Gone from 2008, which I really enjoyed a lot of things on this album. I enjoyed that they introduced some thrash elements. There's some thrashiness on this album, and I appreciate that. So in listening to their albums all in a row, I had this is the first album where it like brought me out of the weeds, where I just like, oh, there's some cool shit here. Because everything had gotten to be so much of a blur of like, oh God, I'm so just over this band. But then all of a sudden there's good shit on this album, and I go, cool. And this is the point where Corey's singing vocals take like a big step up for me. And I'm just like, oh, he sounds great. And I also like the fact that they're pushing their sound more. And I do have to admit, though, that with the thrashy parts, just like with blast beats or anything else, I do feel like sometimes they just grab something from somewhere else that somebody already did and say, well, let's do this. And it's fine, but sometimes it's such a jarring transition that I go, oh, it's like they put somebody else's song in this part and then went back to a Slipknot song. So that's a criticism there. But I think that they're done really well. There's genuinely really cool songs on this album. And I this was a point where I started to hear songs that were more mid-tempo at times. And I would think to myself, these are like the best Slipknot songs. Like there's something about like they got a stomp that they can get going that just feels really good. And just they don't need, I feel like the extreme elements can be there at times, but they're good enough of a band to like play around in the middle, of things. Unfortunately, the stuff that's more melodic and slower is also getting better. So I just feel like, I guess that's when you're a band, I guess that's the kind of thing you would want to hear from somebody like me. Like our newer albums we're getting better. And, because like, because it seems like it's always the other way around. Like they put out a new album, their first 3 are the only good albums, or whatever. But I think it's a really good album. Once again, the last thing I wrote is too damn long. Yeah. It's but I do have to say that I think All Hope Is Gone is the most enjoyment I had from a Slipknot album since Slipknot from 1999, which is our joint #1 Slipknot album, which I'm sure a lot of the Slipknot fans out there are calling. What do the kids say? That's mid. It's mid. Our
cringe.
But but putting this, I feel like major Slipknot fans would consider this a boring choice for #1, right? Wouldn't they?
Yeah, but on the flip side, there's no denying the strength of this fucking album, man. I mean, the whole thing, I think it's sick.
Nice.
Which is the soul line in the opening track, which is 7426170000027.
Or if you're in the checkout line, beep beep. That's what it is. It's the barcode, right? It's like a barcode from their last album or something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
Or their demo. But if it had a barcode, doesn't that mean it's legit? Come on, guys.
What are you, out of your mind? So following that up, we have Sick, which is fucking gnarly. Great opening song. That crawling breakdown with the "You can't kill me 'cause I'm already inside you" is just awesome.
Can I stop you here for a second? Do you feel that the DJ scratchy stuff in their music was ever necessary at all? Did it ever bring anything good that was absolutely needed to their music?
I don't know. I feel like at this point, it's kind of it's more of an ornamental side of things, and I think it sets them apart.
I just feel like there's no record scratchy part in a Slipknot song that sticks out as like, oh, that was cool. Whereas like a lot of these other bands, I'll throw Limp Bizkit in there. They had parts where I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool how that goes with the song.
Yeah, I feel
But
like there's
it's
bands
almost
that
like
do
it
it
was
better.
arbitrarily like, oh, I want to rap in this band, so also we need a guy to do wikis on top of it. But I just feel like they brought nothing extra to the songs that made them better.
Well, he also kind of acts as a bit of a hype man live. So whenever he wasn't like, scratching, he'd be, smashing his fucking shins to pieces,
Yeah,
diving into the crowd,
I think
which
the
he did
reason
do one time.
I think the reason why I brought that up is that I always thought that the when Sick kicks in, it's so
Yeah.
cool, but it gets taken down a notch by the wait, 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 wait. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, it does not need to be there because it's already a good song on its own. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's of the time. It was, those
Yeah.
bands were doing that.
I mean, how you get Eyeless, that like kind of drum and
That
bass fake
that
out
is
into.
my favorite Slipknot song. And to be fair, like the only reason why like I could say that I at least care a little bit about Slipknot is because they have a song like that literally every time I hear it, it gets me like an adrenaline rush. It's
Yeah.
just so good. And I always really liked the line in the chorus, but then I later figured out that Corey Taylor didn't even write it. He got it from somebody else. So I'm like, all right, well, no wonder it's such a good line.
Yeah. You can take California with that man around his eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like, that's one of those great examples of the song is really good, and then it gets to that motherfucker, and it comes in slower. That's one of those. That is one of those. That's one of those examples of like you make that face.
Yeah. It's that meme of when the riff comes back slower.
Yeah. But that's like that.
Yeah.
That's if somebody was going to say, "Can you give me one of the best examples of that?" I'd be like, probably "Eyeless" by Slipknot. It's
Yeah.
like it's fucking great. But anyway, I love that song.
Even when it's bouncy, it's still filthy. That banana, bang, or banana,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
like,
Like that's I
yeah,
it makes me mad that more of their music is not this good because
yeah.
I love this song so much. So oh well,
Oh well, yeah. We still got this album, and
yeah,
Wait and Bleed is probably the closest thing to a song that you could play on the radio from this album.
yeah.
Also, I can't believe I got this far into this fucking podcast without mentioning it. Did you ever see those Radio Disney parodies of metal songs from ages ago?
I've seen some of them. Yeah,
Yeah, I used to love the Wait and Bleed one. Where it's a I felt the air rise up in me, kneel down and when it got to that da 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 but it's the fact he goes, get your fucking hands in the fucking air.
yeah.
That
is
living up on a time
that is that is a good example though. The melodic vocals in that song don't actually bug me that much.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the difference is that he's doing there, but it also could be that I've heard that song a whole lot, so I've gotten used to it. I don't know, but it's a good song. It's a great single for the album, I think.
The thing I found impressive about that song is the shouted vocals are in key as well. So that
well
always...
in the I don't know if you remember, but the single version of this song on the album, there's almost there's two vocal tracks, a shouty one and a singy one that are done together. But in the single version, the shouty one's completely removed, and it's just the singy one. And so even the part where he goes, "Get out of my head because I don't need this." On the single version, it's more of a "Get out of my head because I don't." It's like it's more of a spoken thing, which I feel like that was their way of being like, well, let's not make this completely super aggressive for the people out there, which is it's a good move. I have no problem with releasing a different version of a song for a single to reach a wide audience, because unlike a lot of people, I don't think that's a bad thing. Why would you make music and not want to reach a wide audience? So there you go.
Exactly.
Those are my 2 cents. I just threw them in there.
Immediately following up, probably the most accessible song on the album, you get Surfacing, which is pure insanity. You hear, you hear a lot of the individual isolated elements of Slipknot's Sonic Arsenal in this song as well. Not to mention the
Yeah.
like what the fucking hell is the guitar doing? But it fits
Yeah.
so good. Spit It Out is the first Slipknot song I ever heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's a good one. And it's just rattling off rhymes in this fucker.
That one to me, you know, how old was I in 99? 21-year-old me or whatever. When I first heard this album, that was the buzzkill moment of the album. Because at that point, I'm like, this album fucking rules. And then I just hear like, I'm gonna rap right now. I'm gonna do some rap like this. And I'm just like,
yeah.
Why?
Canterbury, your ass to the chrome, straight to the dome.
And yeah, and the lyrics are just, it's bad. But the chorus is cool. So it wasn't a complete wash for me, because I'm just like, all right, cool. It's got a cool chorus, but like, yeah, that whole thing, because I mean, I have to admit, like, sure, like, look at me, I'm the whitest of white dude, but I at that point had been listening to like actual hip hop for most of my life. Like I got into hip hop in the 80s when before I got into metal. So when I hear these dudes and that like strip the art of rapping of all of its soul and groove and and it just becomes almost like Nick Nack Paddywhack, give a dog a bone, which I know Korn did that, but Korn had the fucking balls to just say that in the fucking song. Yeah. but it all comes across as just like this sort of childish bullshit that they wanted to rap, because I also like Dr. Dre or something, you know. I'm just like, all right. So anyway, yeah. So that song is like the moment where I go, if they had just kept the momentum going, the album would have been all killer, no filler.
Fair. I like Spit It Out more than you, but yeah. I do get it though. There are some lines in it where I think to myself, Jesus Christ. But yeah, Tattered and Torn is a spooky track. Purity is this slithering chug riffage with some sassy turntable scratching going on.
Yeah.
Liberate is a cheeky groovy fucker. Prosthetics, it's this slow new metally dirgy groovage. No Life is headbanger riffage with some white boy hip hop vocals. You know, I'll admit though, there's a part of me that does like him on this album though. But like,
I mean, is it so weird that I'm the person that like I love Limp Bizkit, and that is white dude rapping, but for some reason the way that Durst does it, he's not trying to be like,
come on.
Yeah, he's like it's almost like he realizes that he's not the greatest lyricist or vocalist, but he seems to there's some sort of really enjoyable quality to when he does it, whereas other times it's cringeworthy, for lack of a better term. Are we doing the version of the album with the songs they had to remove, or did you listen to that one?
I just went off of the one that happened to be on Spotify. I have listened to both versions of this album
because I find that fascinating. For those of you who may not know, if you're not a big Slipknot fan, there's I think one actual song, and then the other part I think is a lead up to it or something like that.
I think what is it? Slipknot. It'll be on the wiki page.
But it's like, it's interesting because as far as I know, the only reason that they had to remove it is because the lyrics were based on actual event. Well, I think he didn't know that they were based on actual events, but it turns out they were, or the other way around. It's not actual events. Go ahead.
It's after the album's release, the band had to remove 2 tracks after allegations of copyright infringement. Purity and Frail Limb Nursery were inspired by a story published online about a girl named Purity Knight who was kidnapped and buried alive. Okay. It basically turned out to be a early creepypasta. And
but I find it fascinating that they had to remove it because the subject matter was the same as what somebody had written, but yet it's perfectly okay now for a band to call themselves The Devil Wears Prada and that's
Yeah.
just the title of a fucking book and a movie.
Yeah.
Which now that we're now that we're on that subject,
Okay.
who the fuck names their band The Devil Wears Prada? Because it's like, it's literally just like, hey guys, come check out my new band, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Dude, there is a whole glut of just awful 2000s band names, man. There's I'm pretty sure, I mean, this is pretty self-aware at this point, but I remember there was a deathcore band, I think they're still around, called We Butter the Bread with Butter.
Well, okay, no, but that, I like that because that made me laugh.
Yeah, but I think that was a parody of where things had gotten, because like you get all these bands where they just play like dun 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 dun, dun
and they do the crab thing. I can't. Which I'm doing it under my desk, guys. No,
but they all have the audacity to turn around and call their band "Burying the Betrayed Martyr of a Broken Heart," and then just go dun 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 dun, dun, you know.
Yeah, but there's a lot. But I just don't understand because it's how is. I mean, maybe they were trying to be like, as you guys say over there, cheeky a little bit with their band name and be like, well, we're a heavy band, but we're calling ourselves The Devil Wears Prada. I don't know.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm not a fan of that kind of shit. So it's not, but it really does give me that idea of like, what should we call our band? And then they're sitting in like the guy's mom's room and they just see a book and they're just like, Devil Wears Prada sounds kind of cool. I don't even know what that is, but let's just fucking, call ourselves that. And then by the time they have a record deal and somebody says like, have you seen like there's a movie called that? And it's it's all about fashion and stuff. And they're just like, oh, we already got the record deal with the name. So,
Yeah.
Who knows? These are the kind of things I think about when I'm just sitting by myself. I'm just, why would you call your band that?
Where was I? I've got, sorry.
At this point, I'm it's been 2.5 hours or not that long, but you know what I mean, to the point where my brain is scrambled and I'm just like, what are we even talking about now?
Fair, because I've got here, Diluted is an angry ass song. Only One. There's a Slayer sample at the start that I never noticed before. I never noticed it was a Slayer sample.
What is it? What is it from? I don't think I remember.
I think it's the end of South of Heaven where it's going.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That just sounded like a Scooby-Doo sound effect. Fun little Easter egg though. There's a really cool weird riff in the middle of this song. Scissors is a creepy and heavy 8.5 minute closer, and Eeyore is a hidden track that appears after a recording of the band reacting to a scat porno, as you do. So yeah. I mean, we've all seen the one with the two girls in the cup. So,
which I think they proved that to be fake. So
I don't know, man.
I mean, I'm sure. I know. There's real. I'm sure there's real stuff out there, but I think that particular video was not real. Anyway.
Oh.
But yes, this is also my number one, and it's also an album that like I don't think is perfect. There are things about it that I don't like, but I think as Slipknot go, it's their most fun and entertaining and enjoyable to listen to, and it at least half of it still stands up today for me as an album that I just think is really fucking great. And there's just a really great energy to this album. And like I said, at the time, I was really happy that there was like a heavy band doing stuff that sounded like metal. And not, but it was the new metal elements of it that I didn't like. And which is weird because some of those new metal bands now I also really like, but the Slipknot doing it, I'm just like, nah, you guys can do better. I'm holding them up to a higher standard, even though I'm not really a fan.
Fair.
I think there's certain songs that take me out of this album, and I do think that it's too long and it kind of loses its charm about halfway through. even though there are still cool parts here and there. That should be the tagline for my half of the Slipknot ranking, quote unquote. There are cool parts here and there. But yeah, and the awful lyrics started from album number 1. But but that being said, Lo, I think this is great because it's the first thing they did. Well, the first actual album, and I'll say it's the first legit because it's got Corey Taylor, and Corey Taylor is the face of the band. When you think of Slipknot, you think of Corey Taylor, at least I do. And so the fact that they out of the gate with this version of this band just put out this thing that just even today still sounds really good. I think that's why it needs to be at number 1. That being said, I do think that the recent Slipknot stuff is of a pretty damn good quality too. And so even though I decided that I really am not a Slipknot fan at all, I find it fascinating that their first album and some of their more recent albums are the stuff that I'm like, oh, okay, this is because maybe the next album they put out, once they're on their own, or if they do an EP or a single or whatever the fuck it's going to be, maybe that'll be like the first one where I go, oh shit, this is in my top 10. It could totally happen. And I'm open for that to happen. But yeah, that first album's for that second album, whatever, Slipknot 99, is great.
Slap nuts, nutty nuts.
1990 nuts. So yeah, there you go. It's been a long road, but we finally made it to Slipknot, and so we can do this one. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, motherfuckers and cocksuckers, we did it.
Fuck me, I'm all out of albums to talk about.
I do actually really like that line. Fuck me, I'm all out of enemies. I do like that. That's good. Anyway, if you've stuck around this long and you're new to this podcast, I apologize because you're probably a Slipknot fan and you're just mad at me, and that's all right. I realize that most of the time I don't have a lot of negative things to say. There's a few episodes here and there. The Misfits comes to mind when I was talking about Graves era Misfits, and when I was talking about later Helmet.
I'm scared for you. You put Iowa at 6. They are not going to be happy.
I already feel like I'm persona non grata when it comes to like actual metalheads. So yeah. I feel like there are the metalheads, and then there are the old head people. And we also like metal. So anyway, yeah, so that's it for this episode where we jammed in 8 Slipknot albums, and honestly, I had a lot more to say than I thought I was going to, but it's almost like I just wanted to give these people, we're back after a couple weeks, and I wanted to give them a big fat episode, and they got that.
Hell yeah.
Peanut butter platypus to those of you who are still here, and next week we're going to come back with a fun episode. And if you've caught our hints along the way, you kind of know what it's about. And I'm looking forward to it just because it's something that it's a particular subject that I and you like to talk about a lot anyway. So It'll be fun. Anyway, so yeah, you have any parting words for the folks out there?
You can't see California without Marlon Brando's eyes.
All right. I met him when I toured with the Stones.
This may be the reason why Corey cannot be killed with conventional weapons.
All right, Del. Anyway, okay, so that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for joining us. And as usual, let's just wrap this up quickly and throw it out. Everybody, everybody, get on with your lives. But first, I throw it over to Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
You can't take California without me. Latitude! Latitude! Find me there! I'm gonna sing this bitch! Latitude! I don't know. I had an idea.
No, and then I cut it right here.